we have seen the 7th mantra, which is the crux of this entire Upanishad. And even though there are 12 mantras, this 7th mantra is the most important, the most precise definition, if there is one, for consciousness, for this absolute, this Turiya. And Gaudapada Acharya ji writes his Karikas to give a little bit more light on this mantra. We left off at Karika number 11. In Karika number 11, Karya Karana Baddhautau Ishyate Vishvatejasau Prajna Karana Bandhastu Dvautau Turyena Siddhyate. Vishwa and Tejas are both conditioned by cause. And what is meant by cause is they are conditioned by cause and effect, and the waker and the dreamer are conditioned by this ignorance, and this ignorance does not allow the waker or the dreamer to know their true nature, which is over here implied as cause, and that cause is self-ignorance, is the non-apprehension of that reality. And because the cause, one's own true nature, the self, is not known in the waking and the dream, both the dreamer and the waker now starts projecting, and the projection is known as the effect. In the dream state, the dream is the effect. In the waking state, the waking experiences are projected, and that non-apprehension, not knowing one's own self, misapprehension, over here is the effect. He nicely mentions that. Now, continuing with Karika number 2. Natmanam na paramshchaiva
Natmanam na paramshchaiva
na satyam napi chandrutam
Na satyam napi chandrutam
prajna kinchana samveti
Prajna kinchana sambeti
Turiyam tat sarva druksada.
Turyam tat sarva driksada.
So, Atmanam na Atmanam na paranshcha evam na satyam api na cha anrutam kinchana samveti. What is said over here is samveti, to know. Na samveti, not known. What is not known? Atmanam na samveti. The jiva over here is talked about that prajna does not know anything of the truth. And over here, Vishwa, Tejas were talked about in Karika number 11. What is Vishwa and Tejas? Vishwa is the waker, Tejas is the dreamer. So over here in this shloka, what is talked about is prajnaha, the deep sleeper. The content over here, who is the subject? The subject over here is the deep sleeper. And what is prajnaha? Prajnaha atmanam na samveti. The deep sleeper does not know his or her identity. The deep sleeper over here, this perceiver, feeler, thinker, jiva, is awake during the waking state, is projecting during the deep sleep, during the dream state, and the deep sleep state, that same jiva over here is suspended because the equipment is suspended. So the jiva does not know its own self. That is what, because it doesn't have the equipment to know itself. So deep sleeper does not know the self. Then the deep sleeper prajnaha na paranshchaiva samveti. Not only does the deep sleeper doesn't know its own self, but it also does not know the world of objective reality. That is what is meant by paranshcha. The objective reality is also not known. So the world of the objects, emotions and thoughts disappear. The physical objects are not known because the body is suspended, mind is suspended, intellect is suspended. Not only that, but the dream objects are also not known because the mind and the intellect are both suspended. So the dream world is also suspended, and the dream world also is not known. Na satyam, truth is not known. It is in complete darkness. Not only is the truth not known, na cha api anrutam, the illusion is also not known. The illusion of the dream state, the waking state, both anruta, false, is not known. So if there are two types of false. One is absolute false. Absolute false is the horns on my head. They never were, they aren't, and they never shall be. So that is non-existent. And the other untruth is Maya, the world of illusion. This body is also untruth in Vedanta. Why? Because in the distant past it was not, and in the distant future also it is not going to be. Right now there is a seeming existence of this body. So anything which is coming, staying, going, it has no absolute existence. So over here, anrutam, falsehood, is not known. So absolute untruth is not known. Not only that, but even the illusion is not known. But paranshchaiva, the objective reality, is also illusion. That is also not seen. So, turyam tat sarva druksada. But the fourth, the absolute consciousness, turyam sarvadruk, it is ever the seer, it never ever disappears. Why is it said seer over here? It is said seer because turyam is used. Fourth. Fourth is only with respect to three. So the waker, the dreamer, the deep sleeper, consciousness by itself is nothing but pure awareness. But here the pure awareness is with regards to the waker, the dreamer and the deep sleeper. So the waker is asleep, the dreamer is asleep, the deep sleeper is asleep. What I mean by asleep is they are suspended. So when all three of them are suspended, it is ever aware. Otherwise, who knows upon waking up that I had no experience? No experience is still an experience. I had no experience of objects. Deep sleep, upon waking up I say, oh, I had a dreamless sleep. It is known. What is known? The absence of dream, the absence of projection is known. So what was there? Nothingness. Who knew nothingness? I. Which I? Turiyam, Sarvadruk. That is why the fourth is Sarvadruk. It is a seer. It sees what? It saw the absence of all objective reality. And that is why this Karika, these compositions of Gaudapadacharya Ji's independent composition sheds more light on what is Turiyam. Why did he write all these things? To help facilitate Nididhyasan, deep contemplation. And this contemplation allows me to dive deep into the Absolute Self. Thus, na atmanam, na paranshcha, na satyam, na api anrutam, prajnaha kinchit na samveti. This deep sleeper knows nothing. But Turiyam tat sarvadruk sada. But Turiyam is sarvadruk. It is a seer in the waking state. Without it, who would lend sentiency to mind, intellect and the body? So, in the waking state, it is ever present. In the dream state, it still lends awareness to the mind and the intellect. And in the deep sleep state, it awares the void at the absence of the equipment. Equipment is not there to know, but the awareness is there. So, here we have a clear comparison between the objectless world of sleep and the sleepless world of reality. Very beautiful statement of Gurudev. It is worth contemplating upon. So, clear comparison between objectless world of sleep. There are no objects in the deep sleep state. And in the sleepless world of reality, this absolute awareness which knows no sleep. Why? It is always aware. It is always consciousness. Continuing, Karika number 13. Dvaitasya grahanam tulyam.
Dvaitasya grahanam tulyam.
Dvaitasya grahanam tulyam.
Dvaitasya grahanam tulyam.
Ubhayor pragnaturiyayoho.
Ubayor prajnaturyayor.
Bijanidrayuta prajnaha.
Bijanidrayuta prajnaha.
Sachaturyena vidyate.
Sachaturyena vidyate.
Sachaturyena vidyate.
Sachaturyena vidyate.
So, in this Karika, what is said over here? Dvaitasya agrahanam tulyam. Ubhayaha pragnaha turyayoho. The Dvaitasya agrahanam. Dvaitasya of the duality. Agrahanam, the non-apprehension, the non-perception. The non-perception of duality. Ubhayaha prajna turyayoho, for the deep sleeper as well as the fourth state. The deep sleeper as well as the fourth state, in both of these states of reality, the reality of the deep sleep state and the reality of the absolute awareness, they are both devoid of duality. There is no duality in the deep sleep state. Why? Because the equipment which perceives duality is not there. So for the deep sleeper, the equipment which perceives the outside world object and the inside world of emotions and thoughts, not there. Equipment is not there. So deep sleeper, no experience of duality. Consciousness by itself alone is. In awareness, there is no duality. So neither one of them over here, there is no perception of duality in the deep sleeper and in the ever awareness, consciousness, the fourth state. Only the two states are taken, the deep sleep and the consciousness. The waking, the dream are taken compared with the consciousness. Then the waking, dream, deep sleep is compared to consciousness. Then the deep sleeper and the consciousness are compared. There is a contrast, comparison between them so that it can be understood. We can understand properly. The waker and the dream both were combined together. So there is one dream world. Waking world in this Upanishad is dream. Dream world in this Upanishad is dream. So there is only a dream reality, a deep sleep reality, and the ever present consciousness. Three are taken. One is projection, one is no projection, and in the fourth one, consciousness, it alone is. So over here, the deep sleeper and consciousness are over here. Both of them are talked about. Bija nidrayuta prajnaha. Now why is it that the deep sleeper, why is it that in the deep sleeper there is no apprehension of duality? Because bija nidrayutaha, it is endowed with none other, it is conditioned by the sleep which is smitten by ignorance. The deep sleep, in the deep sleeper, it is smitten by ignorance. Ignorance is the cause of the deep sleep, and the deep sleeper is in deep sleep because ignorance has pushed the jiva into the deep sleep. Why is the consciousness not apprehending duality? Sa chaturyena vidyate. Duality is not even known to the fourth state. Why is it not known? Because it is ever awakened. So these karikas, what they do is they clarify our understanding of waking, dream, deep sleep and consciousness. All four of them have to be very precisely understood. Why? So that I can figure out where I am. When I sit for meditation, when we sit for contemplation, when we do nididhyasan, deep contemplation, deep reflection, meditation, we should know exactly what we are meditating on, and we should know exactly what we are not. Thus, this clarification is given over here that Bij Nidrayutaha Pragnyaha, the deep sleeper is conditioned by ignorance. Bij Nidra, it is a causal state. Bij over here, causal, it is a cause. Bij meaning a seed. And the seed is this deep cause called the causal body, the vasana, the ignorance, that becomes the cause of the deep sleeper to go into this deep sleep. Sa chaturyena vidyate. What is sa? Sa, what is referring is Bij Nidra. The causal sleep is not there. Causal body is not there for consciousness. Consciousness has no cause. It is a causeless cause. This is what we find from this karika. Consciousness has no seed. It has no seed of ignorance. It is ever aware. So Vishwa Tejas, there is misconception and duality. The waker and the dreamer, there is a misconception. The misconception is its own nature is not known, and because its not nature is not known, it is projecting duality. But for a prajna, there is no misconception, there is no duality. Why? Because it is overpowered by causal ignorance. Overpowered, it is called Bij Nidra. The seed ignorance overpowers the jiva. But Turiya, no misconception. Why? It is ever aware. No duality. Why? It alone is. No causal ignorance. Why? It has no cause. This much we have to get out of all these karikas. Some more clarification. Swapna nidra yuta vadyau
Swapna nidra yuta vadyau
pragna sattva swapna nidraya
Prajna swapna nidraya
Prajnastu aswapna nidraya
Prajnastu aswapna nidraya
na nidram naiva cha swapnam
Na nidram naiva cha swapnam
turye pashyanti nishchitaha.
Turye pashyanti nishchitaha.
I don't know why I cannot read today. Swapna nidra yuto adyo. Swapna, dream. Nidra, deep sleep. Yuto adyo. Adyo, the first two. What are the first two? The waker and the dreamer. The waker and the dreamer, Swapna Nidra Yuto, they are both endowed by dream and sleep. Both of them are associated with dream and sleep. But Prajnahatu, but the deep sleeper, over here, the deep sleeper, Aswapna, there is no dream. And Nidraya, but there is sleep. So this has to be understood. First line we will understand. The waker and the dreamer. The waker and the dreamer, what is the identity of the waker and the dreamer? They are both associated with dream. That's why I said this is very important. This point was made earlier. Again, I will make it. The waker is called the dreamer in this Upanishad. Why is the waker called the dreamer? Because the dream world is a projection. Waking world is a projection, sorry. The waker is also called the dreamer because the waking world is a projection. Why is it a projection? Because it doesn't know, the jiva does not know its true nature. When it doesn't know its true nature, it projects. It projects what? It projects individual life of suffering. That I am an individual, I am a male, I am a female, I am educated, I am rich, I am poor, I am suffering, I have sorrow, I have pain. All those things in the language of Vedanta, the jiva is called a samsari because it experiences the experiences of samsara, not knowing its true nature. If it knew its true nature, it would not own up the incidental experiences born out of equipment. The incidental experience of a manhood, a womanhood, pain, sorrow, all those things are born out of prarabdha. But the prarabdha is to the equipment. The destiny is to the equipment. Destiny is not to me, the always aware consciousness. Thus over here, the waker is referred to as the dreamer. This we have to contemplate upon, understand and own up that the waking state is also an extension of the dream state. In the dream state, the order is not there. The order is not there because the equipment which provides the order is suspended and rudimentary amount of mind is there projecting. So the one which creates order doesn't monitor the projection. In the waking state, if I see an elephant and I see a lady walking in high heels and purse, in the dream state I superimpose all those things. I will see an elephant walking in high heels with a purse. In the waking state, it is impossible to find an elephant walking in high heels with a purse. But in dream, possible, because the equipment which monitors the order of the reality is suspended. So it is a projection of the mind without monitoring is the dream state. Waking state, mind is fully present, but the intellect is also fully present. And the intellect monitors the world of objects, emotions and thoughts. Outside it need not monitor the reality because the outside reality is a cosmic dream. The cosmos has created this reality. So the intellect simply has to observe the cosmic dream. But the intellect, when the cosmic dream enters the equipment, the intellect has to monitor it as to what its relationship is with the cosmic world outside. Nonetheless, a dream. Because it is a projection. Whose projection? It is a projection of cosmos, of Ishvara. We call it Ishvara, the Lord who presides over the creation, he projects. So, the waking state, projection. Dream state, projection. And they are both endowed with, associated with dream and sleep. The waker also, what is meant by sleep over here? not literally sleeping. What is meant by sleep is ignorance. What was talked about is bija nidraya. Of the last karika, the ignorance is there. Ignorance is there for the dreamer and the waker. But the deep sleeper, prajnahatu aswapna, there is no dream. There is no projection. But he is endowed with nidra. Nidra. Why nidraya? Nidraya is there because ignorance is there. Ignorance, the causal ignorance is there. Na nidram naiva swapnam turye pashyanti nishchitaha. Turye, in the deep, in the wake, in the fourth state, in the awareness consciousness, nishchitaha, it is firmly established by the ones who are awakened to the fourth. What have they established? Na nidra. There is no ignorance. Na chaiva swapnam. Neither is there projection. Deep sleep state has ignorance. The fourth state has no ignorance. It has no projection. And this is a firm conclusion of people who have awakened themselves to this fourth state. Continuing, karika number 15. Anyatha grihnata swapnaha.
Anyata grihnata swapnaha.
Nidra tattvam ajanataha.
Nidra tattvam ajanataha.
Viparyaseta yokshine.
Viparyaseta yokshine.
Turiyam padamashnute.
Turiyam padamashnute.
So, anyatha grahanataha swapnaha. Swapnaha, the dream. And when dream is talked about, you have to add, not just the sleeper, not just the dreamer, but the waker is also a dreamer. So, waker is not mentioned, but we have to supply that. In this Upanishad, it is implied that the dreamer is a waker and the dreamer. Okay. Anyatha grahanataha, dream is misapprehension of reality. Anyatha. Grahanataha, the apprehension. Anyatha, misapprehension, is the waker and the dreamer. Nidra tattvam ajanataha. But the deep sleeper, tattvam ajanataha. The deep sleeper does not know the truth. Waker and dreamer, they not only not know the truth, but they misunderstand the truth to be body, mind and intellect. That is anyatha grahana. The identity is not known, and because the identity, the jiva doesn't know its identity, it grabs a false identity. That is called anyatha grahanam. Misapprehension. What does it misapprehend itself to be? The poor body. I am the poor mind. I am the poor intellect. So I am the body, mind, intellect. And identified with the I am the body, mind, intellect, I am in this world and this world is persecuting me. physically, this world is persecuting me psychologically. So all that starts because there is no apprehension of the absolute, and that is called over here anyatha grahanatah swapna jagrata nidra tattvam ajanatah. Nidra, the deep sleeper, tattvam, the absolute, not known. Absolute is not known, but also there is no projection. It also doesn't take itself to be the body, the mind and the intellect. That is not there in the deep sleep state. Viparyase tayokshine, when this erroneous knowledge, viparya, erroneous, this erroneous knowledge, when this errors, kshine, when it disappears, turyam padamashnute, the fourth is known. What is the error? The error in the deep sleep is not knowing the truth. The error in the waking and the dream is the projection. These are the errors talked about. Ignorance is referred to by, in this karikas over here, avidya, ignorance. Then non-perception, agrahanam, and all those was talked about. So agrahanam, that is referred to ignorance. Then sleep, nidra, that is also considered to be ignorance. And then over there, karya and karan. Karan was talked about. Karan is none other than the cause. So this avidya being the cause that creates the effect, all these are the words used over here for the dreamer, the waker, and the deep sleeper. All these are different things used. Error is also referred to by 4 words over here, and error is ahankar, the ego. Ego is there to own up, and because of ego, the projection will not be there. It is the ego which projects. So the non-apprehension created misapprehension. Who creates this? It is the ego. And what is it that it creates? Dream. What else does it create? Effect. So dream, effect, misapprehension, non-apprehension, ego, all this is talked about over here in different words. Understand it clearly. All it means is the waker and the dreamer, they don't know their true identity. Because they don't know the true identity, it projects, and the projection is illusion. The projection is dream for both the waker and the dreamer. The deep sleeper has the causal ignorance. Because of the causal ignorance, tattvam ajanatah, it doesn't know its own true nature. But then there is no projection for the dreamer. Why? Equipment is not there. That is all talked about over here. Now when all this misconception ends, when the waker and the dreamer realize their identity, turiyam padamashnute, they realize their nature to be consciousness. That's all. That is what is said in the 15th. The 16th karika is a very famous karika. This is very famous. Anadi mayaya suptaha,
Anadi mayaya suptaha,
yada jiva prabudyate,
yada jiva prabudhyate,
ajamanidrama swapnam,
ajamanidrama swapnam,
advaitam buddhyate tada.
advaitam buddhyate sada.
This is a very, very important karika. This pretty much summarizes the waking, dream and deep sleep in very, very precise, beautiful way by introducing even the jiva, even the embodied soul. Embodied soul is referred to in this shloka as the jiva. The jiva, embodied soul, who goes through the transmigration of birth, experience of life, death. Again birth, experience of life, death. So the entire transmigration, continuously arriving and going, that is referred to as the jiva. And since when is this jiva doing this? Anadi mayaya, beginningless ignorance, beginningless maya. This poor jiva has been doing this, God knows how many lives it has lived. This is all it has been doing. It has been taking birth for so many innumerable past births. And if the jiva doesn't wake up in this birth, it will continue. If the confusion of the embodied soul remains, this will continue for lives. So anadi mayaya suptaha, it is always asleep. It is asleep to what? It is asleep to its nature. It is asleep to the absolute reality. And because it is asleep to absolute reality, it has awakened itself to the cosmic reality. And the individual reality born out of cosmic reality. There are three realities. The absolute reality known as Paramarthika Satta. Then the waking and the dream reality known as the waking reality known as the transactional reality Vyavaharika Satta. Vyavahar. And then the waking state is also interpreted. I am speaking, but you will understand what you want to understand as per your own equipment, which grabs the information and allows you to process. That is called the inner reality, Pratibhasika Satta. These are the three states in which the jiva lives. The three realities. The internal reality, the outside reality, and the absolute reality. Absolute reality is what is referred to in this Upanishad as Turiyam. The waker is the transactional reality. Each one of us are awake and we are awakened to this world and we accept the experiences born out of this world. Then there is a individual reality, and that individual reality is individual in our own mind and intellect. That is the psychological reality. And the psychological reality has its own time and place. It projects a dream world, which is a dream world, and the dream world is in dream time. So this is called Anadi Mayaya Suptaha. It is asleep. It is asleep in transactional reality, and it is asleep in its personal reality, pratibhasika satta. But then, yada jiva prabuddhyate, when the jiva awakens, it awakens to what? Absolute reality, paramarthika satta. And what is this paramarthika satta? The absolute reality, or the fourth state of this Upanishad, it is ajam. It realizes, I am unborn. Consciousness, unborn. Anidram, meaning there is no ignorance. Anidram over here meaning it is sleepless, is what is written over here. Please understand it as devoid of ignorance. Anidram. Aswapnam. Aswapnam, dreamless. What does dreamless meaning? Dreamless means it doesn't project, that's all. So there is no projection. Advaitam, there is only non-dual presence. Buddhyate tada, it is known. And Shankaracharya ji, in this Karika, he gives a very beautiful definition of this jiva. And what is this? Jiva, he calls the jiva samsari. Samsari, the one who is subjected to all the problems of the waking world. Yaha ayam samsari jivaha. What is mentioned over here is jiva. Who is the embodied soul? That poor embodied soul is the one who goes through the pangs of the samsar. What are the pangs of samsar? Saha ubhaya lakshanena tattva apratibodha rupena bijatmana anyatha grahana lakshanena cha anadikala pravruttena maya lakshanena swapne. What is the dream? The dream is born out of Ubhaya Lakshana. There are two Lakshanas. There are two definite ways in which the Jiva becomes a Jiva. And our Gurudev calls it not knowing one's own true nature. Shankaracharya ji calls it Tattva, absolute nature. Apratibodha Rupena, not knowing one's own true nature. Not knowing one's own true nature is non-apprehension. I do not know my own self. And when I don't know myself, what happens? I understand myself to be something other than my true nature. And what is that? The non-apprehension creates misapprehension. Misapprehension is, I am the body, I am the mind, I am the intellect. I am the owner of this home. I am the owner of this job. I have such and such experiences. What are the experiences? He calls it anyatha grahanam, grabbing onto something else. What is anyatha grahanam? Mama iyam pita, this is my father. Putraha, this is my child. Ayam naptaha, these are my relations, these are all my friends, my mother, my father, my husband, my wife, my children, my home, my mortgage, my car. We can add all those things. Those things Shankaracharya ji didn't have back then. So I am all of those things you can add over here. Kshetram. Over there, it was little villages people lived in. So it was this kshetram, this village belongs to me. In those days, people had great identification with their lineage and the villages they came from. So, oh, this is my village. So, kshetram, pashavaha, and the wealth was what? Cattle. So, these are my cattle. So, that was considered to be their wealth. So, Pashavaha, Ime Esham Swami, and I am the owner of all of these cattle. Meaning it is my wealth. That is what it is. Aham Sukhi, Aham Dukhi, क्षीयतः aham anena vardataha cha anya iti evam prakaranta swapnaha. This is called dream. Owning up all these things, my village, my child, my home, my wealth, my all these things, Shankaracharya ji says, is a poor jiva who is a samsari, who is suffering. Any type of wrong ownership is the birth of the jiva. And why is it wrong ownership? Because the jiva did not realize it is absolute consciousness, independent of all these things. Thus, the transmigration of the jiva starts from ownership of the equipment. When I say I am the body and when I say I am the mind, then I own up the actions created by the mind and the body. And when I own up the actions created by the mind and the body, then I own up the fruits of the actions created by the mind and the body. And when I own up the fruits, then I have to suffer. And that suffering creates birth, more births, and even more births. And in this way, yada vedanta artha tattva abhigneyam paramakarunika guruna na asyevam iti tvam hetu phalatmakah kimtu tattvamasi mahavakyena pratibodhyamanaha tada evam pratibudhyate. What is pratibudhyate? When he awakens, that only happens when paramakarunikena guruna, when he finds a teacher. The teacher gives upadesha. What upadesha? Tattvamasi upadesh the teacher gives. And the tattvamasi upadesh is yada vedanta artha tattvam abhignena. When he understands the deeper imports of Vedas, summarized by that thou art. When that arrives, the jiva becomes awakened. And that awakened jiva now has no identity of projection. And in the absence of projection, it realizes ajam, I am birthless. Anidram, there is no ignorance. Aswapnam, there is no projection. Advaitam, I only am, there is no duality. In this way, the identity of the jiva is fixed. We'll continue tomorrow. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.